first Sunday of Lent, the church always proposes the same passage of the life of Jesus, the temptations in the desert. And the second Sunday of Lent, we also hear always the same passage, the passage of the Transfiguration. This is how we start Lent. Temptations in the desert, Transfiguration in the mountain. And it's really interesting to see how different are both scenes. On one hand, you have the dryness of the desert, the difficulty of the desert in the first week, but in the second week, you have the majestic scene of the mountain. In the desert, you see Jesus struggling because he is hungry, struggling because he's facing temptation and having to combat the devil. But in the second Sunday, you don't see Jesus struggling anymore, but you see Jesus in his glory, transfigured. In the first Sunday, it is clear that we are seeing Jesus in his humanity, in the ways that he is just like us. But in the second Sunday, we see the ways in which Jesus is beyond us and more like God than like he is one of us, because his face and his body was transformed. So it's a very dramatic and sudden change from week 1 to week 2. A very abrupt difference between week 1 and week 2. Almost as abrupt as the way that the weather changes from Friday to Sunday. And in this passage of the Transfiguration, there are many theological, profound elements worth commenting. For example, the presence of Elijah and Moses, the cloud, the voice speaking from the cloud, the tents. But today, I want us to put our attention in something perhaps a little bit more practical, more down to earth. The whole passage of the Transfiguration has a context. And the context is the context of prayer. The text says that Jesus goes up the mountain with his 3 apostles to pray. They don't go to the mountain to do hiking. They go to pray. And it says that while he was praying, he was transfigured, as if the transfiguration was a consequence of his prayer. He prays first, and as a result of him praying, he is changed. So today, I want to speak about prayer and how prayer can change things. How prayer has the power to make things different. And I want to share with you 2 stories. One happened to me this week. And it may sound like an exaggeration, but everything I'm going to say is absolutely true. Last weekend, I went to a high school retreat. And I brought along a number of volunteers to the high school retreat. And one volunteer came especially to take photos, so we could later share the photos of the retreat. And this volunteer, she paid $100, even as a volunteer, to come and take photos. So the last day of the retreat, I said, "Could you give me the memory card, please, because I want to download the photos?" And she said, "Yes, Father, but they take good care of the card. You know where it's going, right?" So I took the card with me, and yes, I put the card in my pocket, and guess what? The card went missing. And I was so disappointed in myself because I said, I made this person come for the whole weekend. I made them pay $100. I lost their memory card, and all their work went to the trash. So I said, I'm going to find this card. I flipped the house upside down. I was looking in the parish center. I was looking in my house. I got a group of homeschool kids. I offered them $10 if they found my card. The card was nowhere to be found. I texted the person and said, "I'm sorry, I lost the card. I'll get you a new card. I'm sorry for making you go to the retreat." But then I remembered that there's a group of ladies called the Seven Sisters Apostolate. And these are 7 women, each of them take 1 holy hour a day to pray for a priest. And this is so humbling. And I feel so grateful for this. Because there are 7 women that offer a holy hour. I don't think so much for me, but for me as a priest. And I reached out to the leader and I said, tell the army of the prayers that I need to find my memory card. 2 days ago, I was walking in the sidewalk. Okay? Nothing to do with a memory card. I was walking in the sidewalk with a friend. And I was looking at the floor. And guess what? I saw something little with a golden sticker there. And it was the memory card that I was looking for. The memory card had no business being in the sidewalk. I had no business being there at the sidewalk at that time. But I found the memory card. And perhaps we could be skeptic and we could say, come on, Father, you would have still found it if you didn't pray. I don't think so. I think that the Lord was trying to tell me prayer has power. And prayer with faith can change things. I want to share with you a different story. A couple of years ago, I was in Peru, and a mother reached out to me very concerned because her teenage daughter was going through a very difficult period. She had an eating disorder, and the girl had given up on eating almost entirely. When I met with her, she had lost over 20 pounds in the last month because she didn't want to eat. And I remember that it was a sunny day, but she was all cold and covered up because she had no calories in her body. Her mom took her everywhere. He took her to all the shrinks, to all the people that could help her. She came to me because she was desperate. I tried to reason my way with her. I tried to the best of my ability to convince her that she had to eat. I failed miserably. There was no way to get this teenager to eat. About 2 weeks later, her mom reaches out back to me. And she says, Father, good news. My daughter is eating. I'm seeing small improvement. And I said, wow, who convinced her? Who helped her out? And she said, Father, we began to pray together. We began to pray in the moment of distress. And we took our problem to the Lord. And she found suddenly the strength to be able to eat when she couldn't eat before. So this is my second evidence that prayer can transform things. In the way that Jesus goes up to the mountain and he is transfigured by prayer, in the same way, prayer wants to change our life. And I want to read something to you guys that really I think ties perfectly to what I'm saying. This is a beautiful text from the founder of PS. And he was a really convinced man about the power of prayer. And he says first how prayer transformed his own life. Please listen to what he has to say. I think it's beautiful. But Lord, he writes in his diary and he says, but Lord, I've yet to tell you the best part. What have you given me in prayer? What have you done for me in prayer? How have you transformed me in prayer? Ask a beggar who was taken from a dumpster and in a few years groomed to be seated on a throne, wearing a crown and a royal cape. What have they given you? They ask me. He responds, everything. I came from a dumpster, from destitution, from vulgarity, and now I am a king. And then he says, what can prayer do for others? And he says, look at what prayer does. With the clumsy, prayer makes them sharp. With the weak, strong. The timid, brave. The vacillating, intrepid. The imperfect, perfect. The proud and complacent and impatient and selfish are made humble, austere, patient. In other words, prayer transforms souls and obtains holiness. I want to finish with 2 questions. The first one is this. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Do you truly believe that prayer can change anything? Do you truly believe that nothing is impossible for God? That in the same way that prayer could bring me a lost memory card back to me, prayer can do miracles beyond your imagination in your life? And let me ask you the final question. With this, I finish. What aspect in your life can only be transformed by prayer? What aspect in your life have you tried everything and have failed, but perhaps are yet to bring it to prayer? Remember, brothers, Christ goes up to the mountain, and he is transfigured because first he prays. Today is a Sunday to believe again in the power of prayer. This second week of Lent, let's make it a prayerful week.